We've got big short style fraud, feeder funds with serious things, and the next generation of commercial real estate brokers. My name's Hannah, and I'm taking you inside the latest edition of The Real Deals magazine. Let's go. So Susie, you and Bella wrote our cover story for this month.
Yes.
Tell me what's in it.
Yeah, so basically we took a closer look at the types of investors that were really drawn into multifamily syndication in 2020, 2021, a little bit of 2022. So we've been reporting on this for about a little over a year now. And in the early conversations we had, we really saw that, these different types of investors kept showing up. And we were just asking questions, like, why do we keep seeing doctors? And, on Twitter, why are doctors complaining about being targeted so often? And then as we dug in further, we found that, it's not just individual sponsors targeting their own types of people. It's more systemic. And it's these funds that have been built specifically by doctors to draw in other doctors.
And this is also enabled by the Jobs Act, right?
It is, yeah. So the 2012 Jobs Act is credited with democratizing investing. And one piece of it is that it allows these sponsors to basically market to anybody on the internet as long as they're accredited investors, which essentially means that they're high earners. And you can imagine, think 2012 to now, social media has gone crazy. Like Facebook, that was great. And then Instagram, and now we have TikTok. And your network, like if you think about your network, it's probably a lot of journalists. If you think about a doctor's network, it's probably a lot of doctors. So it's like it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Right. So you wrote a mortgage fraud story this month. You wrote a lot of fraud stories. So tell me what's particularly interesting about this fraud.
It really reminds me a lot of the 2008 financial crisis, where lenders had all these subprime mortgages that they sold then to investment banks and eventually to investors in different tranches. And here you're seeing it happen in the commercial side. There's a lot of fraud that is happening, and those loans are then being passed on to Fannie and Freddie Mae.
How widespread do you think this fraud might be?
The examples we've seen are particularly egregious. So it was extremely easy to do this. And there is really no checking mechanism by the lenders or by Fannie and Freddie to ensure that this doesn't happen. So I think it could be incredibly widespread.
So you talked to some of the people from the sort of next generation of commercial office brokers for our issue.
Yes, I did.
Tell me who you talked to and what you learned from them.
I talked to about a dozen brokers in their 30s and 40s from the Big Five: Cushman & Wakefield, CBRE, Newmark, JLL, and Colliers, and talked to them about how they're doing things a little bit differently than their predecessors who were, from the generation before them in their 70s and 80s.
Yeah. What do you see as sort of the biggest difference between this younger generation and the ones before them?
Their approach is much more data-driven. They're coming to meetings with pitch decks, lots of data. They're not wooing clients anymore with steak dinners and, taking them to sporting events. It's more consulting business than it was, in past decades.
Coming out of all of those meetings, did you get any insights from the brokers about where they think the commercial market is at?
They were all optimistic. They think that it's turning a corner, saying that, they think we've hit the bottom and it's going to be smooth sailing ahead.
So you did a story for the magazine this month about branded developments coming into Palm Beach, which is like a little bit counter to the Palm Beach culture, I think. So what were the developers' reasons for thinking that branded was the way to go in such a sort of quiet luxury, let's say, marketplace?
Yeah, so I think both of the developers who are trying out branded in West Palm are, it's David Merton from Terra and George Perez from Related Group. They're both Miami-based developers who have a lot of experience doing branded. So I think that's part of it, is just it's a product that they know. Mm-hmm. And they also chose brands that they think fit well with the West Palm Beach clientele. So they're not bringing the Mercedes Tower to West Palm Beach. They're bringing
Cipriani and Ritz-Carlton. Yeah. And if this concept does work there, do you think that changes the sort of larger picture in the market or the spectrum of what you can build in the Palm Beaches?
I mean, there's definitely just an overall vibe shift going on in West Palm Beach at the moment. You know, there's more than 6,600 residential units in development. There's developers coming from, you know, New York, Canada, across South Florida, and there's just a lot changing. So there's definitely room for that market to expand and shift and grow with this branded concept.
So you did a story for the magazine this month about New York's co-op market.
After all of these antitrust lawsuits, there's a lot of discussion about buyers agents, kind of their value in the market diminishing. And co-ops in New York City especially is one area where their value is pretty clear. Co-ops are like really tough. They're notoriously hard to get past the board. And those buyers brokers are the ones who have the kind of experience and institutional knowledge to help their buyers get into the buildings that they want. For a lot of co-ops, it's actually the entry point into the market in New York City. So the prices are lower. If you're a first-time buyer, that's probably where you're going to buy. They're the most, they take up the most property in the city. But even in those kind of hard to get in buildings, there has been some relaxation. Some of them are loosening their rules about renovations and stuff like that, just to make it a little bit more attractive because they're competing with new development condos, which, you know, there are certainly rules in those buildings, but they're not nearly as, you know, regimented as a co-op.